べき言葉は、ああ、そっか。ただいま。
おかえりなさい。もう帰ってこないと思っていました。
そうだな。デスゲームをクリアすれば、データである月の祠やシュニーたちもデリートされるだろうからな。
Alright, my friends, so 𝐜𝐡𝐴 episode number 5, and this is finally the reunion for Shin and 𝐒𝐿, and they both finally find each other once again. They face off against a level 800 and something black face, black monster, black mask, some big, really large undead monster, and there's a bunch of other undead monsters that they use their combo move and they purify it. Now, I'm going to talk about the episode, but one thing that I wanted to kind of point out was when he's conversating, when Shin, our merchant, when Shin, our MC, is conversating with 𝐒𝐿, you know, she asks him a very important question to her, because she's been looking for this man for 500 years. So you have to imagine the level of importance is like through the roof. But she asks him like, hey, you know, if you find a way to return back to your world, would you do it? You know, he's pretty quick to answer yes. And immediately I was perturbed by that, but I was like, why? And I realized that at the beginning of the anime, right, like they showed us Shin, you know, and they gave us the whole spiel. You know, there's this online game. It's a death game, and you know, several players, the whole SAO thing. You know, several players got stuck in the game, and they couldn't leave the game until until the game was completely beaten, and Shin ended up being the final boss, Origin or whatever, and all the players got to be able to log out of the game finally. But he kind of transcended that, and he infinitely got stuck in the game. And this time, as opposed to him being, you know, a player, you know, kind of like a virtual fictional player stuck in the game, he actually became sentient. He became real. He basically went from being a gaming character and understanding that to actually being isekai, so he can touch, he can feel. You know, this world became tangible to him, along with all the other NPCs and stuff that were like they all became known. Like they I think 𝐒𝐿 this episode basically said that she went from autonomous to aware, which just means that she remembers everything that occurred, but it felt like she wasn't choosing what she was doing. And it's like after those 500 years, or you know, after the boss was beaten and the players disappeared, she became like aware and like, you know, basically alive at that point. And so he answers that question of like, yeah, I would go back. And a lot of questions I had. My first one was like, why? Why would you go back? And, you know, when you're watching anime, you always assume that this is some, you know, 15 to 35, 40-year-old person here. And they don't really have, you know, maybe they have a job or something that's good, but they don't really have family. They don't really have like, you know, normal things of that nature. Now, what I realized is he was pretty quick to answer yes, but we don't really know his full story. We don't know, you know, was he a NEET? We don't know if he had a girlfriend or a wife or children. Like, we don't really know that side of Shin because the show really didn't cover that. It just went through that these players were playing a death game and they got stuck in the game, but they kind of were very loose around the tongue about like what actually is, you know, what he actually was in the real world and stuff. So that leads me to believe, or that leads me to want to know, I should say, of who he was in the real world and why does he want to get back. You know, my sense is like, okay, if you were like the typical, like, you know, NEET person, you know, whatever like that, then, you know, there's a chance, or there's a higher possibility or higher potential for him to maybe fall in love with 𝐒𝐿 or someone else, or just the world in general, or these people that really matter to him in this world and want to stay. And then there's the other part of we need to learn more about him over here. It's like, okay, well, what if he had somebody that he loved Maybe he had children, maybe he had a family. Like, we don't know. Maybe he wasn't a NEET. Maybe he was very successful. Like, he was living a good life. We don't really know his story. So that's what I want to know more about. That question that was asked to him, that was answered, was really, really, was really important. And also, by the way, I said episode 5 at the beginning. This is episode 4. Next week is episode 5. I'll put that in the comments to be like, I messed up. At the beginning, it said episode 5, but I meant episode 4. But that's one thing that's like really important. It's like, it seems like so far, he's living a pretty decent life, an adventurous life, something very far removed from what you would consider, what we live, like our typical life. He's living something very adventurous, and, he's living a little boy's, fantasy in a sense. So I thought that was really cool. Now for the episode, it really was kind of like beat by beat this episode. It was pretty much like we got left off on last week with Will. Also, I love Will so much. They were going in and they beat a bunch of undead. The church girl, the nun girl, she was able to learn the purify spell, and then it immediately went up to the next portion of the episode, which was this big undead 800 level thing sucking up everything in the area, summoning undead, like really strong big boss. That could destroy a country kind of thing, like, really big thing. And then 𝐒𝐻 comes, she's bolting. She sees, Shin fighting from far away. And she comes and they reunite and they do the combo moves. He destroys all of them, which is really, really cool. They share some really cool, tender moments, catching up, a lot of catching up. And, he decides to let her, make her, instead of master, he wants to be called by his name. She asked that really important question, and then he tells her about his plans kind of going forward, or at least, his immediate plans going forward. Then we see Yuzuha, the fox, is actually like it's more like a kitsune kind of like, fox, very powerful fox, and can speak now that the miasma's gone and everything, which I think was cool. And then we see the lady, the big voluptuous lady, and we get to see that, they find his sword. And apparently, Shin might have been known as, a high human, but he might have been known as a very legendary blacksmith based on the little falcon thing on his weapons. So overall, I think all of that was just really, really cool. Next episode, episode 5, is called A Momentary Break. So I think they're going to kind of peel it back a little bit and kind of focus on maybe his relationships with 𝐒𝐻 as well as Will and the other people. And next week will probably be less action. It'll probably be more like, let's, kind of like see more personal stuff, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. So overall, though, I really like episode 4. I thought this was a really good episode. I love that he was reunited with 𝐒𝐻. A little disappointed in his answer of returning, but hey, I completely understand, any time that you're removed from your situation, even if you're put into one that you would have normally only could dream of, you still kind of want to get back to what your semblance of reality is. So you can definitely understand, the meaning behind that. So anyways, let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below. And my friends, I will see you guys next week for episode number 5. All right. Have a good weekend. Peace.